All right, hey guys. So those two questions on the exam that we didn't get to cover in class, which I didn't count, if you got them wrong, don't worry. I did want to give you kind of a quick little lesson on those because those are really interesting questions. So one of them was about this wasp called the Sphex that Nancy Murphy brings up in the context of her discussion of free will. And basically, this is just a really interesting little story. I'm sure you can tell someone someday if you want. This wasp is one of these that, it will lay its eggs and then allow its children to eat another creature that it kills. But actually, the wasp is very smart because it doesn't kill the creature. It actually, rather than killing it, it'll take like a cricket and it will paralyze the cricket. It will inject enough venom to paralyze it but not kill it. And then it will drag the cricket into a burrow that it digs, and it will lay its eggs alongside the cricket. And when the eggs hatch and become larvae or whatever, they will eat the fresh cricket meat. It's sort of like a refrigerator, keeping your food in a refrigerator so that it's fresh and it doesn't go bad, which I guess it would do if it actually killed the cricket. So this sounds very intelligent. And almost like, this wasp is thinking, about life and, I should probably put this thing in the equivalent of a freezer so my children can eat it months from now. But it's not intelligence. The wasp doesn't really know what it's doing. It's not acting, thinking and planning. It's just acting on instinct. So, for example, the wasp will bring the cricket to the threshold of her burrow, I don't know, probably her, and then go into the burrow, check that all is well, and then go back and grab the wasp and drag it in. If while the wasp has already dragged it to the threshold and it's going in to check that all is well, if you move the cricket like an inch to the left or a couple inches to the right, it will go back, drag the cricket to the threshold, and then recheck that all is well in the burrow. And it will do that infinitely. It will only drag the cricket into the burrow if it has brought it to the exact threshold and then gone in and checked that all is well. It doesn't have the intelligence to say, it moved a couple inches, I don't know what's going on out there, but I just checked the burrow, it's good. And I'll just drag it right in. It has to kind of go through that step. And I guess they did this experiment one time, 40 times in a row. They'd move the cricket an inch, and then the poor wasp would go back and check and then not drag the cricket in. So that's the story of the Sphex. Just interesting, apparent free will, but not really intelligence for the wasp. The other thing was the story of Virginia, which I did not get a chance to tell you guys, but is really important as well. And this is in the discussion that Murphy has in chapter probably 5 of, how does God interact with people? And this is very much tied to our question of the soul, which we actually never discussed in the class. We talked about so many great things. We just didn't get to this. So how do you think that God or the Holy Spirit, interacts with people? People who are dualists often think that, it's through the soul. People that are monists have to answer the question, how does that happen? How does that work? And so Nancy Murphy presents a story from Nicholas Walterstorff, who's a very well-loved Christian philosopher. And this is the story that she relays. So Walterstorff is actually telling the story about Virginia. He says, let me present part of the narration of some experiences which recently befell an acquaintance of mine who is a well-established member of the faculty of one of the old Eastern Seaboard universities. I shall call her Virginia and call her pastor Byron. Perhaps I should add, though, that Virginia is a Christian. She neither is nor was what anyone would classify as evangelical. It's worth saying that because evangelicals have the reputation of believing that God speaks to them rather more often and rather more trivially than most of us think God would bother with. Okay, so I guess he's making fun of evangelicals. He's well loved in evangelical circles, even though he is a bit of a prophet or critic, at least in that sentence. So here's what happened in Virginia. On February 12th, 1987, while I was folding laundry, I suddenly knew with certain knowledge that Byron was supposed to leave St. Paul's Church. There was no external voice, but there was a brightening in the room at the moment of revelation. Byron was her pastor. The experience was so overwhelming that I called my husband and invited him to come home for lunch. I needed to reassure myself of reality. Later that afternoon, I found myself sobbing. I knew the knowledge I have been given was not me, and I knew it was correct. As the day progressed, it became clear to me that there were 7 insistent statements that I needed to tell Byron. I was awestruck and terrified. The next morning, when I went to see Byron, I told him the 7 statements. Your work here is done. You have accomplished what you were sent to do. You are still young. There are great things in store for you. Do not be afraid. God will take care of you. I will help with the transition. The message was not a surprise to Byron. He had already come to that conclusion prior to our conversation. Virginia goes on to tell about the ways. So now this is Murphy talking. Virginia goes on to tell about the ways in which her message was confirmed in the days to come. There was a second message to be delivered to a meeting at the church, which was well received. And Byron did get a call to go to another church. In addition, Virginia's own spirituality deepened. So this is Murphy's point. She says, notice how ordinary this experience was. Not ordinary in the sense that people hear from God all the time, but ordinary in the sense that it used or depended on nothing but ordinary cognitive abilities that we all have. A set of ideas came into her mind. She had a variety of feelings, a feeling of certitude, a feeling of awe. So that's Murphy's point, is that there's nothing magic necessarily when we experience God. It's kind of all the normal stuff that our mind or we as souls are made up of, at least in the story for Virginia. So that was, I thought, a cool story to think about, continue to discuss. So I wanted to share it with you guys. Enjoy your break.